Orange Appeal. I'm Lauren.
I'm Kirti. And I'm Mahita.
And joining us today is the Mayor of Dublin, Ohio, Chris Amorose Groomes. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. So excited to be with you. You're videoing as well, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
So just starting off, we were wondering, looking into your most current initiatives in the city, Dublin is steering towards development in our community through programs like Envision Dublin, and we were wondering what are some of your initiatives to further the development of our community, and what are some challenges you faced along the way?
Sure. Well, gosh, that's a good question. There's a lot there. So, City Council has embarked upon, we embarked upon the Envision Dublin process a couple of years ago, and it's a very long process, and it's intentionally long. Because it's a very detailed report. And basically what you do when you're doing a community plan update, which Envision Dublin is our community plan, you really take stock of where you are, you take stock of where you'd like to be, and the opportunities that you have to get there. And so, it was about an 18-month process, and public input is at the core of what our community plan update or Envision Dublin is. And really understanding of what is it about our community that people love, what is it that they would like to see more of, and what are things that they're not necessarily wanting to embrace. And so you gather that feedback over a course of public meetings. I think we had in excess of 15 public meetings over the course of Envision Dublin.
Wow.
To try to garner that public input and then put a document back out to the community and say, this is what we think we heard, is this what you said? And then through the approval process of that and then getting additional feedback on that before we finalized and approved it as a community. So in that document, a lot of things have changed since our previous community plan update. We have the opportunity of rail on our western edge, and so we've been working very tirelessly in land acquisition and planning and trying to see what that might do, how transportation supported infrastructure really happens. And when you have a rail stop, I don't know how much you've traveled, but if you've been to any big city around the world, you know that wherever there is transit stops, there's a lot of stuff there. Mm-hmm. And how much of that stuff can we put there? What are the utilities that are in place? Do we have enough water to service it? Do we have the sewer capacity to service it? Is there enough power, electricity in the area that can support that, and gas? And then you start to talk about the transportation network. Are there sufficient roads? Are there sufficient sidewalks? Is there sufficient bike trails? And so all of that goes into one of council's big initiatives is to make sure that we have mobility options for our community. One of them would be rail. The second was you probably heard on the radio recently, April 1st, started the sales tax collection for Link Us. And how that Link Us is a bus rapid transit. It kind of walks and quacks like a light rail system, but it actually runs on wheels. Hopefully it's our precursor into having light rail, and how that will come out and tie into our mobility hub where the rail is. So those are the initiatives of City Council, among many other things. I don't want to take up all that time on that because I know you have a list of questions and I could go on and on. But those, mobility is one of the key initiatives of the City of Dublin, because people need to be able to get around in an efficient fashion, and to try to make those as affordable and as reliable as we possibly can. You've probably heard about our Dublin Connector, which is our first mile, last mile solutions to those, and an opportunity to get seniors to medical appointments or to the grocery store or whatever. Aging in place has been a big initiative of City Council, and by having mobility options, people can stay in their homes longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like being able to transport and have a bunch of mobility with our people really helps build a community here in Dublin. So that's really important. And so I had a question that kind of relates to that, and it's what steps do you guys foster to build a sense of community and belonging for all of our residents, regardless of their background or circumstances?
Sure. I think one of the most challenging things we encounter as a city council is running a local democracy, because democracy is hard. because everyone has an opinion and not everyone's opinion is the same. And when you make decisions and you move forward in a direction, certainly there are going to be people that wasn't their wishes. And so how do we stay together as a community? I think some of the things that we try to do as a community is what you try to do in your family, right? We try to celebrate together.
Yeah.
We have St. Patrick's Day, and we have the 4th of July, and we have the Irish Festival, and we do those things that are our holidays, if you will, of when we have the opportunity to celebrate together, similarly to how you would with your family and how you keep those connections going. We try to listen to each other. We take public comment after every item or during every item in every city council meeting, and we give opportunity for people to let their thoughts be heard. And they are, oftentimes very moving, and it's not always something that we can necessarily do anything about, right? There are limits to what government has the authority over and what we as a local government have authority over. So we try to listen, and really we try to do the same things you would do as a family, but do them as a community. We have spaces, right, throughout the city. We call them parks, right, where we can all get together and be in the same place and recreate, maybe throw a frisbee or go for a walk or do some fishing or whatever those things might be. So then we have these common spaces, if you will. And that's the best way I know how to stay connected as a community, is to celebrate together, to listen when things are difficult, and to provide spaces where you just are in each other's presence, and so you have the opportunity. That's what community is, right? It's that togetherness.
Definitely.
So you talked a little bit before about how you can't really please everyone, especially in a democracy. So how would you say is the best way to kind of cope with those challenges, and especially when in your first term, how did you deal with them?
That's a really good question. You want to maintain a really tender heart. I like to focus, and when I talk to people, I talk about the whys more than the whats. So I illustrated to you a lot of the whats we're doing, what about transportation. But the whys are because we care about people, because we want to set the conditions for long-term success. And so how do you cope with people and perhaps their disappointment is to know that your why is good. They may not have liked the what, but if you take the time to communicate your why, that's, you have parents at home, right? And if they're more concerned about your whys than your whats, right? We all make mistakes. I've made probably 25 of them today. But it's the whys that are important. Why did you do that? And those are the places where you can learn, where you can have compassion, and where you can have sensitivity towards one another. So how do I cope with that? Is I communicate with my family or people that mentor me, or that I respect their opinion, and say, this was the really hard decision. This is why we came to the decision that we came from, and this is the information that we based it on. And that, it's hard. Leading anything is hard. You guys know this. You're leading this podcast. It's hard, right?
Yes.
So attempt to lead anything, and you should expect public scrutiny, and you should expect it to be difficult, and you should expect to please some people and displease others. But conversely, you cannot do anything, right? If you want to please everybody, do nothing. Or if you don't want to displease anybody, do nothing. So congratulations to you guys for being willing to do something, because it's harder than doing nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like it's really inspirational how you use your family and people around you to kind of lead and create a successful base for what you do today. And one question that kind of goes off of that is, what advice could you give to our listeners on utilizing resources around them to create a platform for successful careers?
Love what you do, love who you do it with, and love why you do it. And you oftentimes see people that try to occupy a space of leadership because they want to be viewed as a leader. And my advice to you would be occupy your spaces in leadership because they matter to you, not because you think it makes you more important or it makes you more influential. Or I too often see people that occupy spaces that are there because they want to occupy the space rather than they love the work that happens in that space. And so my advice would be, if you love what you're doing and you love why you're doing it and you love the work, you will be wildly successful. Why you do what you do will determine how long and how well you do it.
That's really great. Yeah.
So check your why.
Wow.
It's really inspirational.
Yeah, thank you for that advice.
I couldn't be any more sincere. That is foundational in service in a corporate America, in public service, in your family. It doesn't. The same rules hold true in different spaces.
I completely agree. Especially like being in high school, we always see people doing like something just like, oh, it looks good for a college application or all this, but there's definitely like a why. There should be a why behind everything.
You'll learn a lot more, and it'll be rewarding for you, and you'll be able to do whatever it is you're doing for a really long time, even when times are tough. If your why is really good, it will serve as your North Star. It will be your compass, and it will. You asked what do you do when you have these difficult things? Well, you go to your North Star, you go to your compass, and that's what gets you through.
And I feel like something also that's really important in a community is being open to different businesses. And I know that you stated in a different podcast with Link Ahead that you wanted to center around being like business friendly in Dublin. And I was just wondering like what strategies you use to implement economic growth and job occupation, like incorporating these businesses in Dublin.
Well, that's a good question. So the Link Us initiative is a transit-oriented initiative. So what that does is that gives our companies access to a broader base of employment options. Because you could live farther away from Dublin, and if you have good transportation options, they can hire a broader pool of people. They have more to select from. So that is one way we try to be very business friendly, is we try to have great infrastructure in our roadway network so that people can come in and out of Dublin with relative ease. Now, occasionally you'll have to sit through 2 cycles of a stoplight, right? At rush hour, that happens, but it's not LA, it's not Boston, it's not, really horrific traffic situations. Another thing we do is our income tax is at 2%. Most of our peer communities are at 2.5%. So we've worked really hard to keep a 2% income tax. So that is advantageous to employers, because if you are an employer in the city of Dublin, you can give all of your people a 0.5% raise, essentially, by not having to do anything. So that's another thing we do. And then we do economic development agreements, and where we try to attract and retain businesses, because we want to be a community of opportunity. That whatever you want to do in the city of Dublin is that you have an opportunity to start a career that leads to a great job. And so when we provide those conditions, our business community has given us great feedback that's a successful model for them.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of new businesses that are able to like really prosper here in Dublin especially. And like, speaking of growing up in Dublin, how has growing up in Dublin like impacted you and your position as mayor of Dublin?
I feel like, and I tell people this, they probably get tired of hearing it, but I feel like I moved 3 times. So when I was a kid, we lived here, and it was a very small rural community. The homes weren't built in Muirfield yet. None of those things existed. Sawmill Road was a little 2-lane highway with open ditches. It was, if you go up and down Brand Road, right? It wasn't as wide as Brand Road. It was a small little roadway network, and and it was rural. And then there was the suburban. You know, Muirfield came online, and different housing developments like across the street from the high school, and some of the early housing developments came on, and then it felt suburban. You know, I felt like I lived in a suburb of Columbus. And now we have an urban core, and it feels like a city, right? Like a full-fledged city. So when I first started, when I was born at Dublin, the part of Dublin I was in was a township, and then it was a village, and now it's a city. So I feel like I have had the opportunity of moving 3 times, but staying in the same community. And I really, Dublin is a passion place for me. It's home. And, you know, it doesn't matter where you go. You probably all just came back from spring break, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about you walk in your house and you take a deep breath and it smells like home, and you go to your room or you go sit on the couch or whatever. And as much as you may have enjoyed your vacation, there's something about home that is special to you. And that's Dublin to me.
Right.
Definitely.
And I think like the reason for that is because we have such like a tight-knit community. Like I feel like so many people know other people, and I was just wondering, why do you think Dublin is that kind of place, and what do you think makes Dublin so close and almost like a family?
You know, I think because we work really hard at staying together. We work really hard. You know, Christine Ardecchia, we have a director that her whole job is to connect volunteerism and to connect volunteers with needs, and to try to continue to knit that fabric together. Again, I would say with the celebrations that we do, we spend way more time, way more money, way more energy than most of our peer communities to try to come together and celebrate. We also fund a lot of things. You know, we fund the market, the farmers market at Bridge Park. You know, we fund all of these other things that happen too. Partially fund them. We're not the only funding source, but we'll participate in the funding of those things to provide opportunities for the community to come together. And I think that we've been successful for those reasons, and we're a very diverse group of people. You know, we had a study come back that said that nearly 40% of the people that call Dublin home speak a language other than English at home.
Yeah.
And that is very unlike our peers. You know, that's unusual. But there's room in Dublin for all of those people. You know, if you've traveled at all, and even if we took our little microcosm here of Central Ohio, you know, you have German village, and you have Italian village, and you have the hilltop, and you have people like to live by other people that are like them. Mm-hmm. I think what that translates to in our day and age, the people that are like them in the city of Dublin are people that value community engagement. They value education. They value nature and your ability. So we're living with like-minded people, not like-looking people, but like-minded people that have a similar value system of what's important to them. And, you know, for a long time that was around culture and language and those things. And now it's around our view of the world, what educational attainment we want to have, what role the environment plays in our life, and those things. And that's what I believe continues to connect us together.
Yeah, you mentioned how our community has a shared value of education. I was wondering, since in 2022 you were added to the Dublin City Schools Hall of Fame. Congratulations, by the way. It's evident that Dublin City Schools are listed as one of the top schools in Central Ohio districts, and we believe that it's like a great school system, and we were wondering what makes Dublin City Schools stand out compared to other districts.
Well, the 4 of you, truthfully, I mean, how many, you're sophomores, right?
Yes.
How many 4 high school sophomores, you don't all look the same, you are a microcosm of this city, right? And you want to do a podcast because you want to share with the world what is special about where you call home. And that's why Dublin City Schools has been so successful, and that's why this community continues to support it, because you it's important to you. That's a testament to the work that they do. How long have you guys been in the school system? You've been in a long time.
Yeah.
Are you guys new to Dublin? Have you lived here a long time?
I've lived here since I was 3, so yeah.
I've lived here.
So you've had a lifetime of experience of what the schools have built into you, right? The importance of education, the importance of accountability, the importance of, answering the call, scholastic excellence, never being satisfied with less than whatever your version of the best is. It doesn't need to be the best. It just needs to be the best you. And I think Dr. Marshausen, we've had a lot of great leaders in the school system over the years, and I think Dr. Marshausen has taken up that baton and really sprinted with it hard. And he's doing hard things, right? They're going to be doing some redistricting, and they're going to be, and those are difficult conversations. But that's why it's so important that we're a community that's knitted together, and that we know we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we know that we can do hard things and still care for each other on the other side of it.
Yeah, that's such a unique perspective on how to see things, and we definitely agree. So another question that I had that kind of relates to that is, how do you, growing up and you see all these different cultures coming in, what is a unique experience that maybe you have that really opened up you to something maybe you didn't know before about the culture here in Dublin?
So when I was in the first grade, the Honda plant was under construction out in Marysville. And the Marysville community was a smaller, even more rural community than Dublin was at the time. And so the people that were going to be employed at the Honda plant started looking at their options for housing in the area, and obviously coming from Japan and some of the population densities there, to live in Dublin and to commute 14, 13, 15 miles, whatever it is, to the Honda plant, depending on where you are in the city, that wasn't a long commute. And so I remember my mom was on the PTO board at the time, and the parents were coming in from Honda, and they would take the wives of the Honda execs to the grocery store and help them navigate, because I don't know if you've ever been to Japan or if you've ever been to a foreign country and walked into a grocery store that doesn't look anything like a grocery store here. That can be an overwhelming experience, right? You just don't know where things are. You don't know what they are. When I was in first grade, one day we got a new student, and his name was Masamori. And his dad was going to be the first plant manager out at Honda. And Masa did not speak any English, and he packed his lunch with him for that day. And there was just 2 kindergarten classes, 2 first grade classes. So it wasn't, you all fit at 2 tables. And Masa sits at the table, and he opens up his lunchbox. And in his lunchbox were things that I had never been out of the country. I'm not sure at that point I'd ever been out of Ohio. And there were things in his lunch that smelled like and looked like things I'd never seen identified as food, right? He is culturally different.
Yeah.
And so we sat there, everyone at the lunch table, over the course of the entire school year. And by the end of that school year, Masa was at every birthday party, and he was at all of the celebrations, and he had started to share his foods with us and what they were, and we did likewise with him. And I think it was just in the DNA of our community to not fear the stranger, but welcome them and say, wow, I didn't know that you could eat something like that. And we didn't make that up. That's just who everyone in the community was. So I think that's why the stranger is welcome here, because we don't fear them. It's a welcoming community, and hopefully the people that come here feel that.
Okay, so I had another question that I feel like that's such a unique experience. I feel like I've had experiences like that, and I'm sure you guys have too.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I was just wondering, what did you use personally, life experiences, to build up your confidence to go out and reach out to strangers and really draw them in and make them a part of this community?
I don't know that I ever did anything. Like, it's what we're supposed to do.
Yes.
That's we're charged with caring for each other. We're charged with being kind. The golden rule is they call it, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. It's not nobody owns it, right? No religion, no people group, nobody owns that. That is humanity's charge. And I think this community has taken that charge to heart and said, if I were a stranger in a strange land, I would hope that somebody would show kindness to me. And that's what our community does.
I think so too. That's really cool. I feel like this is just kind of shifting gears a little bit, but as a mayor, you obviously have a lot of work with city council and the rest of the members. So we just wanted to know, how do you use collaboration skills, and why do you think those are really important when being in this position?
So one thing here, this is my educational moment for all the listeners out there, is that the mayor in the city of Dublin is only elected. I'm just a city council member, right?
Yes.
And we elect a mayor, someone who's going to run our public meetings and kind of be outward facing to organizations like the Central Ohio Mayors and Managers Association or the Ohio Mayors Alliance, or someone has to go and represent the community in those spaces. And so I have the unique opportunity of working with a really great group of people. I would say that we're like-minded in that we all love this community. I would say that the 7 of the council members, the one thing that you can't question among the 7 of them is their passion for their community. We often have different perspectives on how we view things. May they be budgetary items, or where the sidewalk should go on a different, on a development plan, or what the best and highest use of which swimming pool we might want to add on to, or whatever those investments might be. But the way we have the opportunity to govern is that the underlying passion for your community isn't questioned. And Dublin, so when I was a kid, my dad served on city council. When I was in middle school and high school, he had served as vice mayor of the city at one point in time. And so I've seen a lot of councils over the course of time. And the blessing that Dublin has had is it's had leadership from long before my dad, when Sherm Sheldon was the city manager, and when other people long before him, Ed Thornton and others, were on city council. There has been a very consistent pattern that if you are going to serve on the city council in the city of Dublin, you gotta love it. You gotta love the city.
Yeah.
And we've been really fortunate that the electorate has allowed that to continue through, and being the first and foremost criteria for being eligible for election in the city. And without exception, I can look back and I don't know anyone that I would say that wasn't true for.
Mm-hmm. That's really great.
And I'm 54, so
Right.
I've been looking at it for a long time. So we've been really blessed as a community.
Right, and do you think that common goal is what makes it so easy to find compromise and work as a team? Just having that goal?
I do, and one of the blessings, I think, the reason why we have the opportunity to be blessed in that space is our elections are not partisan. So if you go to vote the voting booth and my name, Chris Amorose Groomes, comes up, there's not an R or a D or an I or a G or any other letter after my name.
Yeah.
And so that takes a lot of the toxicity out of governing, when you can just be compelled about your passion for your city and not about, I have to hold true to the party line or they'll kick me out or they won't do whatever. And that is found in our charter. We are a charter city, and so that lays out the guidelines for our elections to be nonpartisan. And so that happened long before I was around, that we became a charter city. And so there was a lot of wisdom in the early years of just setting up our government. And imagine the Constitution, right? That's our Constitution. And so in the wisdom of how you can read the Constitution today, that same sort of wisdom was in our charter as well that protected us, you know, probably nearly 70, 80 years down the road from things that could harm us.
Right.
And as our time comes to an end, we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I thank you. I am so excited that the four of you are embarking upon this journey. And who knows how much success the orange peel will have. Hopefully it's wildly successful and you become an internet sensation. But if you don't, this process of sitting and listening and thinking critically, that is so important in this world, to think critically and independently and to check in and have a curious mind. So thank you for being curious, and thank you for being willing to reach out to somebody like me to have a conversation that you don't know how it's going to end. But you did have the courage to start the journey, and that I really appreciate.
Yes, we loved taking the time to sit down and talk with you, and we gained a lot of insight throughout this conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. Well, have a great evening.
Yes, you too.
Should we see the outro?
Okay. And yeah, to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.